Hey, how's it going, everybody? JT here on behalf of the EV Mavericks for this episode 152. This is the 10th of July, 2026. It's good to be here. I had a great 4th of July weekend, as I'm sure many of you did, and I only lost one eyebrow, but it has grown back, and I still have all 11 fingers. So my mom's very proud. I didn't blow off any digits this year. For the 50th year in a row, a safe 4th of July. A near burn, but we made it. We only blasted off about $11,000 worth of fireworks this year. So we'll up our game next year and make a real show. Anyway, I'm joined by Cassie. I don't know if she cares if I say Cassie So Sassy Hart from Hypersnap is joining us on the Maverick Show today. We got some people tuning in on Discord as well, and it's really good to finally meet you. I know you had a video issue, so she won't be on video, which is unfortunate because based off of her profile pic, I'm sure all 95 guys in crypto would have tuned in at least for that. Might have to settle for me laying on the floor like that. I don't know. I'll shut up. Cassie, how the hell are you? I'll stop being cringy. Thanks for coming.
Great to have me. Thanks. I'm doing well. It's been a very interesting couple months.
You can say that again. What is going on? Like, I don't know if you're talking about macroeconomics, macro warfare, or just crypto, like the summertime blues, but then also like it's weirdly positive. I don't know. I'm still positive after all these years. We got builders on Robinhood shaking the tree, so there's something there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they already have meme coins that are starting to spread. It's really surprising and unsurprising at the same time, and it's very surreal being in the middle of another bear market while another corporate chain is starting to do its own thing.
It is like, I don't know. I've been around long enough that there used to be all these days back in the lore of Bitcoin land where it's like, we don't have to control the banks are coming to us. Well, now that it's finally happening, the price is not reflecting it, right? Like, what is happening? I mean, you got Tom Lee out there just vacuuming up shit. Like, he's vacuuming up more ETH. 33% of all the ETH in existence is now staked. Price? What is it now? Maybe 1750. It's just like the expectations and the outcomes, but I still remind myself, it does kind of feel like we've crested the corner of the early days of Amazon in a way, right? We don't know it yet.
Yeah, I have a lot of mixed feelings about it.
Yeah.
I've been in the crypto industry since basically the beginning, and the one thing I've noticed is that it's surreal that all this started as a rejection of traditional finance, and we're now seeing like mass capture from traditional finance. So I don't know, it's complicated.
Yeah. I'm hoping the Clarity Act gets passed, but I'm wondering if there's so much corporate capture now, they'll figure out a way not to. The idea, I'm with you. I think I read on your X handle that, anything other than decentralized is kind of trash. I think it's one of those deals where either we start doing this and save ourselves from our future, or just wish that we would have in hindsight, right? I feel like this time to plant the tree was about a year or two ago, really, and now that we are seeing Wall Street, careful what you wish for is kind of what I've been saying for a while. If you think that Wall Street's coming here to pay higher prices, they'll probably figure out a way not to. They'll control they'll control, in the words of Benjamin Netanyahu, the height of the flame, right? I hope we can get people on board and get this figured out. So this comes full circle to you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your decentralized views, where you started, and where we're going.
Okay. I'll try to condense this as much as possible because as I said, my history in crypto has been in it since the beginning. I was actually on the Met-styled mailing list when Satoshi's white paper was published. So like I've been a member of the cypherpunk scene since I was a kid, actually, and it's been really surreal. The early days of crypto, obviously, like there were a lot of different suggestions well before Bitcoin was published, and people were talking about different digital cash solutions.
Hmm.
And everybody had a couple of different ideas, but a lot of them revolved around this notion of trusted intermediaries,
Yes.
signing notes on the behalf of users to essentially stand in place of traditional banks. And there were actually some proposals that had some traction and adoption. And it wasn't until October 31st that there was a, truly decentralized proposal that was published. And the early days of that was basically just some back and forth between some very nerdy people that absolutely love cryptography and poking holes in everything.
Right.
And it was mostly arguments about whether or not this would even succeed. And ultimately, obviously, it did. Maybe not in the way that was originally envisioned, but it did succeed. Uh, and so we started to see over time new things added, a lot of people coming in, cryptographers suddenly becoming very, very highly paid professionals, which did not used to be the case. So that was a very cool thing to have happen, and the research that's come from it has been incredibly powerful. However, there's also been this progression as the industry has grown of a form of capture that you see in basically any industry that's starting to mature. You can kind of relate it a little bit to the early days of Microsoft. Microsoft was a participant in, software development in the sense that their first product was Altair Basic. They made tools for developers. They then made a disk operating system. They then made a visual operating system with Windows. And as Microsoft's dominance began to grow, their claws begin to latch into the industry in really insidious ways. One of these is the infamous story of DRDOS, which was DRDOS was a I can't remember what the DR stands for anymore, but was basically a competitor to MS-DOS. And Microsoft created a version of Windows 95, that was supposed to be DOS compatible, but they were intentionally breaking things along the way so only MS-DOS would work. Two, with that, we are seeing the same thing happening in crypto. So I ended up joining Coinbase in 2020 as a staff engineer. I ended up leaving as a senior staff engineer, working on their cryptography team. And we were building a lot of tech for multi-party computation. It's a form of cryptography where you have multiple computers working together to calculate the same results without revealing private inputs. This is a really powerful technique for security, defense in depth, and also privacy. And through that time there, I started to notice some uncomfortable feelings with how Coinbase was operating. In particular, we were starting to discuss this notion internally of what Coinbase's next bigger plan is. Were we going to launch a chain? What was it going to look like? And there was a project. I don't even know if the code name is something I can actually talk about publicly, but ultimately it became Base.
Mm.
And the early days of planning around that, I was read in on the project. And again, I had to sign a bunch more than the standard NDAs around that. I don't know what I can actually disclose,
You
so
don't have
I
to.
won't say much. But I will say that the original version of what Base was going to be was not a Optimism L2.
Mm.
And so I was uh, I was very keen to suggest to the executive team, hey, we should actually use our cryptography talent internally. We have literally one of the best cryptographers in the world, Yehuda Lindell, who was basically the pioneer of multi-party computation. Let's use our talents to build something that's much more, higher impact for the industry. As we've seen, in the recent meta with privacy, it's become a really hot topic. But at the time, it was still underexplored. And so I said we should, pursue this. We should actually pursue privacy preservation tech, and we should emphasize this as, because we have the developers to do it. We should pursue this. And so the executive team told me to go talk with Jesse about it,
Mm.
and I talked to Jesse about it, and he basically said, "We're not changing our mind on any of this," which was funny because Base wasn't ultimately what Base was, and so they could change their mind. He just didn't want me to have any input there. So when Base was announced internally to the rest of the company, and it was announced as an Optimism L2, I turned in my 2 weeks and quit.
There you go.
And so I went to go pursue what I wanted to build, what I wanted to see in crypto with privacy tech. And so I started a project called Equilibrium. I started talking about it on Twitter. And as I was talking about it and the things I was building, originally I was wanting to build basically an end-to-end encrypted messenger client, kind of like Discord, but with actual privacy. And as I was building
Oh,
out the
cool.
techniques to do this, and blogging about it publicly, a certain somebody by the name of Varun, who was one of the co-founders of Farcaster, reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're building a social network. We'd be very interested for you to take a look at it, and also very interested to see if you would like to work with us." And this actually, that conversation happened while I was at Coinbase, but ultimately, through that conversation, I ended up joining the team at the owners of Farcaster, Merkle Manufacturing, to basically work part time with them to help build out Farcaster. And so the first project that I took on there was the end-to-end encrypted version of what they at the time called direct casts, which was basically like, direct messages, but ultimately our idea was that we would put it on protocol. And I ended up writing a Farcaster improvement proposal on how to do that. But obviously, like, time passed, nothing happened on that. And ultimately, even the E2EE properties of direct casts had been pulled back. And there's a lot of reasons that went into all of those decisions, but probably not worth exploring for I assume, about an hour-long podcast. So I worked for Merkle for about 2.5 years. July of last year is when I ended up leaving. I wasn't a big fan of their final pivots. They made a few pivots along the way. Like the first was the cozy corners idea. Like they added channels. We thought, hey, if people could congregate into communities, kind of like Reddit, then people could, find their tribe, build a cozy corner out, and grow organically. It didn't get the attention that it deserved. It didn't get the love that it deserved, and ultimately, channels was deprioritized. Then
Hmm.
the next era was the Lego blocks era. Like we build more tools for developers, people can build cool things, it would bring more people to the platform. And that started with Frames, which was the interactive in-post feature. It was like basically a picture and 4 buttons that can do stuff with external resources. And then finally, the last pivot, which was the one that really it basically took the wind out of my sails and made me very disenchanted with what Farcaster was becoming, was the casino pivot. We added a wallet, now we added trading, and now we added like links to tokens, token prices, and an emphasis on, hey, if you trade, if you have Farcaster Pro, you get the trades for free. Like we don't take any fees out on it. And then the acquisition of Clanker happened, and it just turned into a very speculative oriented approach. And the idea that they were trying to promote was make money with friends on Farcaster. And ultimately, as we've seen with the speculation narrative, that tends to be more dump on your friends with Farcaster, and
Right.
that was not a positive experience.
Yeah. It's like the one of the biggest products that this whole ecosystem has curated is like the the shitcoin roulette of roulettes. Like it's a fractal of shit coins. It's just ever spiraling more and quicker. I mean, you had the advent of like Solana and all that ecosystem, and now it seems like every layer two has some kind of DEX associated with it, and creating shitcoins out of thin air is all the rage again. Back in the Bitcoin talk era, you actually had to physically go on a forum, to type in things, and now it's just like, I thought of something, I'm just going to make a meme and see what happens. It's Yeah, it's fun until enough people get burned by it because they took it too serious. And it's kind of like, what are we really here for? Are we here to be distracted by this stuff? I want to I want to rewind. At the beginning, you were talking about the beginnings of Microsoft and when they started to do kind of evil things. Like at some point, there was a split in the community, and one side went towards the Linux route, and Linux is like seems like it has permeated every sector and industry. It just kind of runs in the background of so many things in the world because they, it's just there's a trust thing there. That your story is inspiring. I think you were brought to us by one of our EV Mavericks, either Ben Broad or the A word, and really an honor. You go all the way back. I remember in the early days of Coinbase, I think they had a chat app called Toshi. And I was talking to Brian Armstrong on Toshi. I thought I was definitely the coolest kid in Kansas. That's for sure. For that, you know,
Wait. Hang on a second. You're in Kansas?
yeah, I'm Kansas City.
Oh, no way. Okay. I'm in Wichita.
My mom and dad live in Wichita. I go to
Oh, that's
Wichita all
awesome.
the damn time. Yeah. That's where our freaking fireworks show was in Goddard. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to Kansas,
That's awesome.
Toto. You've been here your whole life? Oh, shit. Here we go. Now we're going to get into Midwest conversation. We'll put everybody to sleep.
Oh man, I am a Midwest stereotype.
Let's go.
I literally made tater tot casserole for my spouse earlier this
We
week.
just had that for the 4th of July. Are you serious? God dang. There we go.
Oh,
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. With homemade mushroom soup, by the way. But
awesome.
that's so that's so funny. That's so funny. Well, yeah, Ed. Yeah, you really got out of the Midwest though, and did some pretty important things in the history of crypto. You got a good 10 years under your belt anyway. Not a lot of people can say that at this point. And this is I think when going back to the earlier part of this discussion, the way things are kind of so weird in the world, it's kind of like I still think in hindsight, we will see the different flashpoints, but in the moment, it doesn't feel like much. But it's so much more than maybe we realize because the regulations, the way that we go about doing this, hopefully from a regulatory standpoint, hopefully we can keep the ship on the right direction and really become at least in the U.S., a nation that practice what it preaches. But I feel like we keep putting the stick in the bicycle spokes, right? On one hand, we got great legislation that has really kind of, the Genius Act got passed. Some of the bad actors are in jail. I feel like things are slowing down on the major hacks and destruction front, except for the guy that's in the highest office of the land is the biggest grifter of them all. And so moving into the election cycles and the politics to go forward, I hope that we can keep the ship, the rudder in the right place because this technology, it will get used. It's just a matter of who's going to lead with it and what are they going to
Yeah.
do and what are they going to do with it. So, I mean, let's face it, blockchain is like the wet dream of the IRS, right? We got to figure out how to keep things fair to where all the transparency of the blockchain means that we can also see the people in power from a transparent standpoint, right? It's it's kind of like let's just get right into politics, campaign finance reform. If it's done on a stable coin, you can see wallet to wallet, possibly. If it's supposed to be public, right? Like if the transfer of the wealth for certain things like that are supposed to be transparent, then make it so, right? And
Yeah, there's a lot of power that can come into play with crypto. The idea of a public blockchain, I wouldn't say that's always been an ideal state. Like
sure,
like I said, I come from the cypherpunk point of view. Like privacy was always kind of like a big deal in that community, and so if you look at like the conversations from the early Bitcoin talk era, Satoshi even noted the like the purpose of Bitcoin is meant to be anonymous,
Let,
but ultimately
let me
it's
clarify.
pseudonymous.
Let me clarify that the transparency can be enabled when it's legally supposed to be enabled. Otherwise, everything should be private. I'm with you. Like
Yeah,
we
and
deserve that privacy. Okay, I'm
100%.
100% with you. I am not like advocating for anything other than privacy and more transparency because we can turn it on and off like a switch. It's just in the smart contract. Like if public funds for taxation are supposed to go to different projects, it would be cool to see a blockchain transfer of that in public, verifiable by everyone, that that money went to where it went was supposed to go to, instead of 16 different NGOs that are, you know, nonprofits that are just like committing fraud with it. I That's why I'm saying, like, we could use the power of the blockchain to cut down on fraud in places where it's supposed to be public that we're voting on. Other than that, Bob and Alice, we deserve the same amount of privacy as anybody else. And
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's actually kind of fascinating too, because you're 100% right. It is totally possible to have private transactions with optional disclosure. You can even see some chains that make this a very explicit thing. Like Monero, I wouldn't consider like the best design in the world, but it does at least have that notion. Like you have two keys for every transaction. There's a view key and a spin key, and you can even publish the view key so that people can see the transactions that you're involved with. Like if it was like an account related to, campaign donations and you have to have that disclosure requirement, just publish the view key and then people can see all of the transactions related to that.
here's a good
But
here's a
everybody else is staying private.
Yeah, yeah. Like, let's say this: big hurricane comes through. Send your donations here. We could at least see that all of these XYZ donations have some kind of zero knowledge that it is going to a person that does live in that area who also has an address, but it obfuscates their private details. But then the money you could see flowed into the correct wallet. Because, like, when it's like, when they're, I don't know. I've become so pessimistic on like charities and in general because of the amount of money that just doesn't seem to get to where it's supposed to go or serve the purpose it's supposed to serve. I'm getting way off base, but yeah, just in general, I think you and I are definitely, yeah, we're on the right track. Like, what future are we gonna provide to our kids and grandchildren? Which, speaking of grandkids, I ate the last of your chicken nuggets and French fries. I don't even feel that bad because I gave a couple to the dog, and now the dog's also to blame. So I'll deal with Nana tomorrow. All right, I had to get that out of my system. Anyway, you get you get what you're picking up what I'm throwing down. The okay,
Yeah, 100.
go ahead. I didn't know if you had any more thoughts on that. We're just kind of riffing.
Well, so that actually kind of gets to a couple of interesting phenomenons, and there's a lot of crossover, both for the Farcaster story and for the early days of Microsoft story. Like all of this actually is coming to a head in its own ways, in this like current cycle of crypto. So when you look at how Microsoft behaved back then, and how they would intentionally introduce incompatibilities so that they had basically a stranglehold on the market.
Yeah.
You're seeing this kind of capture happening in the Ethereum ecosystem too. If you recall, in I want to say about 2019, 2020, there was this discussion about the future of Ethereum. They were wanting to do sharding so that you could split out the overall world state of Ethereum, and then it would give a form of horizontal scalability. This eventually got dropped from the roadmap, and the justification for that was that L2s were essentially providing that scaling, and that the notion for a need for sharding was basically considered no longer important. Ironically, I think that that was a genuine mistake
Mm.
for Ethereum. And by letting all of these L2 projects that super seriously pinky swear we're gonna go to like stage two of the L2 rollups, and it really hasn't come to fruition for most of the L2s. It's kind of led to this type of capture. You could think of Ethereum being like the IBM PC model, and something like Base being Microsoft coming in, embracing, extending, and extinguishing the open standard by trying to basically roll out their own blockchain. And you can see that this has like extended further now by their stepping away from the OP collective and just doing their own thing. Like these are the things that like a lot of people feel betrayed about having seen it happen. But like I saw firsthand internally like the way that Coinbase operates is a very like politically savvy, very aggressive like company that's kind of Microsoft style. Like we're seeing that same thing happening all over again, but in crypto. And very similarly, in crypto, as in other forms of industries, we're also seeing institutional adoption and enterprise adoption. But one of the things that prevents enterprises from actually adopting public blockchains is, as we were just discussing, privacy on the blockchain. And the reason is because companies simply don't want to reveal their customers and their vendors. Like that's very private information, and a public ledger essentially reveals it either directly or indirectly through analytics. And so most companies aren't going to really adopt a public blockchain for their regular financial operations because that basically is like revealing all of their intellectual property about their partnerships. That doesn't fly. And so we're entering the privacy meta. We're seeing this corporate capture of chains. We're basically witnessing, as you were implying earlier, like the early Amazon internet like style days. Like this is the .com bubble rising and also starting to show the creaking signs of the bubble popping. And so it's just really fascinating to see happen. So as I was talking about with Farcaster, we reached this point with Farcaster where it was getting a lot of adoption. There were a lot of users coming in, and people were really excited. Then Coinbase stepped in and launched their new base app that brought over, I want to say, about 1.5 million user signups. And in typical Coinbase style, they tried to make it look like something was, that there's money to be made there, echoing the same kind of, sentiment that the pivot of the Farcaster team had. And by consequence, we got a bunch of users signing up that were basically hoping for some sort of base airdrop if they participated in it, and it just started a massive quality decline. So these are the things that kind of like keep me up at night, make me mad, and I have to like solve it through software. So ultimately, like I said with the Equilibrium project, like the original intention of it was to build a decentralized Discord alternative. And so we actually launched that. We launched Quorum about 2 years ago at this
Oh, okay.
point. And we launched Quorum Mobile at the beginning of this year, which is just the mobile version of the app. And as the whole situation happened with Farcaster selling to Nanar, I ended up integrating Farcaster into Quorum as well. And by consequence, extending the Snapchain protocol, or Snapchain implementation, which is essentially the Farcaster protocol implementation, extending it with what I call Hypersnap in order to provide things that make it easy for people to build clients on Farcaster, and also with some very pro-privacy features.
Okay, let's go there. Where can we find it? Is it just a
Hypersnap
yeah?
is, I mean, you can think of it similar to Ethereum. Like it is a protocol.
Oh, it's a
And so by
protocol.
consequence, like you're not going to find like a flashy landing page,
Gotcha.
especially because like we're heads down coding.
Gotcha.
So we do have like docs on how to build on top of it, but we don't have like a super flashy page. I think one of the members of the Hypersnap dev group created I guess a kind of nice explainer page, but I'd have to actually go find it. I don't think Feli Rami's on the chat right here. Otherwise, I would just say, "Hey, can you post the link?" Because he actually made a very very beautiful website explaining how Hypersnap works and the overall intention of it.
I've got the GitHub here. I want to just real quick. I had some people on chat over on YouTube. On YouTube, somebody mentioned that the Discord link here is broken. You can check it discord.com/invite/EV Mavericks. I'll put that with the URL up here so you can see here. If you want to jump into Discord with us, that's great. If you raise your hand, I can put you on stage if you want to ask some direct questions to Cassie. All right, so I did pull up this GitHub, and forgive me as a non-coding Westerner, Midwesterner. I'm really good at barbecue. I'm not great at GitHub, but it's right here, farcaster.org/hypersnap.
Yep, that is the repo.
That's the repo. And then at Cassie on Farcaster if you want to. Wow, you have 244,000 followers on Farcaster. That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
You're
and
up on the rich
there's
list somewhere, I think.
it's kind of funny because that, like I said, like I did work for Merkle, but that doesn't mean I agreed with everything they did, of
Sure.
course. One of the early things that Farcaster had was this auto follow list, and I was really, really opposed to the auto follow list being a static list. But obviously, early days, like we're just trying to like move fast, break things, and we only had like 1,000 users. So we were like, hey, when we onboard a new user, we should promote a list of 50 very active users on Farcaster and get people to fill in their feed with users that have interesting content. And so we seeded that initial list with the most prolific posters, which included mostly Merkle manufacturing employees plus about 40 other people who were very active. And so by consequence, I did get a lot of followers early on, just basically by default. Um, and that said, like I wasn't very fond of the idea of the auto follow list, especially as a hard coded list.
Sure.
I also didn't ever feel like it would be reasonable or fair to essentially use my larger following that was created by fiat to any sort of advantage. So I've always tried to be very respectful of the kind of privilege that I'm working from there.
Gotcha. Crazy Frog Duo on YouTube. Is this live or pre-recorded? This is definitely live because there's an air horn. See, that's how you know. All right. Oh, look at that. Proof for it didn't happen. XYZ chiming in on YouTube. Go Cassie. Proof for it didn't happen is an awesome thing. I think actually I saw that you retweeted something that they had produced or something like that. Well, I got to type it in correctly. There it is. This is a pretty cool thing. Social bounties for fun. Shout out to you guys. I They got a pretty fun thing going on. Okay, so take me through a little bit about SnapChain before I get totally distracted by the squirrels here.
Yeah, no worries. There's so much to cover. So early days of Farcaster was literally just like we had like some sort of first pass attempt at creating a protocol around what Farcaster was. With 1,000 users and you're just experimenting, it doesn't make sense to codify anything into a protocol at that point.
Gotcha.
Protocols have a very quick tendency to ossify, and so by concept, like we've seen with Ethereum, how long did it take for proof of stake to finally ship? It takes a long time once you have an actively running protocol. So the idea originally is that we try to think about things in terms of how well will this fit into a protocol format, because not everything can work that way. But at the same time, it was just a centralized backend. And then we created Hubs. Hubs was the first attempt at decentralizing Farcaster. The first legitimate attempt, at least, the one that actually credibly started to step in that direction. And we started out with a list of just a few people or a list of a few servers that were actually approved to, write content on the network. That way we could figure out any bugs along the way, and then we could begin to decentralize by, after we figured out all the bugs and made sure it's safe, open up to public participation. And then we did that. The first pass of Hubs was basically proof of authority, and then we opened it up and anybody could permissionlessly run a hub. There was no token involved, so the incentive was basically, if you want your data, you can run a hub and it makes it a lot easier for you to ensure that you have the data, but all peers are essentially synchronizing the same content. It had a lot of growing problems. As the network got bigger, It got slower. Sync was more difficult. People had to create peering agreements with one another to make sure that content was properly replicating. And so it got to a point where we realized that structurally the design of hubs couldn't scale very well. And so we set out to build essentially the second iteration of the protocol. And me and two others at Merkle created what was called Snapchain. Snapchain, very like the beginning of hubs, it was meant to be proof of authority, and then we would begin to decentralize it out once we figured out how to do so safely. Now, Snapchain, unlike hubs, is an actual blockchain, and so by consequence, if you're wanting to pursue a decentralized model, it does require something a little bit more to make that function. Hubs were what are called CRDTs, or conflict-free replicated data types. It's basically a way for you to essentially ensure consensus without having to have strict global consensus like a blockchain. But Snapchain was, in fact, a blockchain. And so when you have strict global consensus, you have like a how do you select the leader? How do you ensure that malicious behaviors are prevented? We didn't have tokens, so no worries about double spend. But how do you ensure that somebody's not censoring content or altering content or anything like that? And so, again, first pass, proof of authority based, and it went on for about a year. And it was really scaling a lot better than hubs were. And so around July, when I left, and the larger scale pivot at Farcaster ultimately converging in the we're now a trading app, I decided like, okay, they're very focused on trying to grow, trying to find any source of growth because they're a VC funded company. VC funded companies are hyper growth at all costs,
Right.
and so
Endless
it was starting
money.
to Yep. It was starting to leave a bad taste in my mouth. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to fork Snapchain, not as in like network fork, but code fork. And I wanted to do, because this is another thing, whenever there was any criticism about the Farcaster app or protocol, Dan always had this approach that a lot of users didn't really like called opportunity for another client. He would tell people, hey, well, that's an opportunity for another client. If you don't like what we're doing with the Farcaster app, go build a client that does the things you want to do.
Yeah.
And I always felt I was kind of dismissive, not just because, well, obviously it is dismissive, but because it's actually really hard to build a client. You actually have to build an indexer of that data. You have to build an ingestion pipeline to generate feeds. Like there's so many things as a developer that you have to do in order to build a client before you can actually have that opportunity for another client. And so my POV was, how about we make Snapchain actually able to serve clients so that you don't need to have that intermediary backend? And so the first pass of Snapchain's fork, Hypersnap, was
Okay.
literally let's just implement APIs that people can use to build clients so that they don't need any of that. So I built the first pass of that around November of last year. And then I sent a proposal, three proposals, and they were all riffs on opportunity for another client. They were opportunity for another consensus to move away from proof of authority, opportunity for another chain to move away from the OP mainnet identity contracts for Farcaster, and opportunity for another curator to start implementing feeds as a first level or first class primitive on Snapchain itself. And as I was doing that, I went ahead and submitted a pull request to follow up on the opportunity for another consensus by adding our one Hypersnap node at the time to the validator set to help. Because at the time, the only validators that were active on Snapchain was Farcaster and Nanar. Now, fast forward to December, like late December, Varun replies saying, "Yeah, we'll be happy to add you as a validator. Just let's wait until January. It's coming up on the holidays, like people are off work. Let's not, create a whole bunch of extra work for all of us." And I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. And so I was starting to talk about Quorum, all the things that I was building, Hypersnap itself, on the show GM Farcaster in January
I love those
when we got
ladies.
yeah, they're great. I love them. We got interrupted with breaking news that Merkel sold Farcaster to Nanar. So I had a whole lot of mixed feelings about it. I thought that Nanar was going to be a good choice because they've been a long time, provider of software as a service tooling for Farcaster. Like they're very active and they were very, positive some contribution to the overall ecosystem. I was also a little bit annoyed because like Dan and Varun were saying that this is the thing they're doing for the next 10 years and they reneged on that. But um, anyway, it all seemed good. I even reached out that same day to Nanar saying, hey, I know that none of the original Farcaster devs, the Clanker team's coming over, but the Farcaster devs, none of them were coming over. There's a lot of tech debt behind the scenes. I'm happy to help you navigate that. I touched basically all of the code of Farcaster except feed generation, so very happy to help. Um, and he said he appreciated it, like Rish said he appreciated that and he'd get back to me, and never did. Um, and so I waited a little bit because obviously new company coming over, they have to like figure everything out. It's all chaos. Everything is on fire.
Everything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll just check in with them after a bit. Um, and I we had the outstanding pull request to add the Hypersnap validator as a peer. It hadn't been closed or anything. It's just been outstanding. And then out of the blue, uh, Nanar announces that they're adding another validator. And it was not the open PR for that's been open for months. It was some other team that was building a private beta of a Farcaster client that you had to get like an invite just to even use in the first
Is this
place.
like a Solana
And
play? Like,
and yeah, it was really screwy. Like it didn't follow our open
so
process that had
screwy.
been in place for years. It didn't use the normal PR process to even suggest the change. Like they just straight up added another validator because they took a phone call with them. And I'm like,
Govern
that's not how we've done things.
governance is a bitch, isn't it? God.
It really is. And so I obviously was annoyed by that and frustrated by that. And their response is, well, we'll add you later. And it's
Yeah,
like,
bullshit.
okay, I don't know why you're like doing this, but that's not really cool. And so other people actually chimed in as well, saying like, why just add or validator. There's nothing like just do it. Like this isn't an why are you making this a big deal? And the more people like were coming to bat for me, it felt like the more they were digging their heels about it.
Ooh.
And so that's where I started to like get the first I guess ick, if you
Ick.
call it.
I was just getting ready to say ick.
Yeah.
God. It's just
The
like,
second was they finally got access to the Twitter account for Farcaster, which wasn't like a super active Twitter account, but it was basically talking about, hey, here's the cool stuff people are building on Farcaster. You should come join. It's a cool place. And the very first thing they did when they acquired the Farcaster Twitter account was post about their App Studio product that they've already been selling, before the acquisition. And it's like, oh, okay, like that seems like the right thing to immediately post about, not like, oh, hey, we acquired Farcaster, or oh, hey, like here's our plan for how we're going to start moving things forward, just
mm,
immediately hawking their wares. And it's like, oh, okay.
yeah.
um, so I reached out again and I'm like, hey, like, when are we going to like actually talk about getting the Hypersnap validator added? And um, through all the pressure and everything, they basically just like snap judgment, no pun intended, said, okay, you should just fork. And I'm like,
Fork.
why? So you know what? I was like, okay, fine. I guess we will. I'll take that to heart. And so we started like creating a plan. Like, how are we actually going to solve decentralized consensus for Farcaster? And obviously, that needed to be incentivized in some way because Farcaster has a lot of data. And so ultimately, what started as just a project to help answer how do you have an opportunity for another client, it ultimately converged in us, being told to go fork off, not literally, but essentially causing us to fork the protocol.
And this is this happened how many months ago? This is months ago, right?
Yeah, yeah, that happened. Like the the mention to us to go ahead and proceed with the fork, I want to say was in February.
of this year?
And we just, yeah, this year. And we just like have been full steam ahead. Like if you
Yeah.
look at the GitHub, we've had a decent number of changes already shipped, but there's a really big pull request going on right now to add a proof of work based solution to solve the decentralized consensus problem for Farcaster.
Forgive my ignorance. Are there hardware requirements that one could put to this to
Yeah, actually,
help out?
the hardware requirements are actually lightweight. We call it proof of work, but it's a very specific form of proof of work. It's not like SHA-256 grinding like
Yeah.
Bitcoin or
Right.
SHA-3 grinding like Ethereum,
Yeah.
or at least old Ethereum. Instead, it's actually based on three factors. Essentially, rewards are issued by the protocol for different forms of proof of work. The first is obviously the protocol itself. If you run a node, then by virtue of running the node, you're participating in a process that basically allows your node to prove that you are properly storing the data of the network. So it's not proof of, compute, it's proof of essentially storage. And then the second form of work is developer oriented work. So people who build clients, people who build mini apps or building snaps or anything that integrates with Farcaster, there's so many signals that land at the protocol that prove that your client is actually like being adopted, being used, and helping contribute to the growth of the protocol. And so because those signals are measurable, they can be rewarded. And so that's the second form of proof of work integrated into the protocol. And the third is the user-based rewards. If you grow the network as a user, it shows as measurable signals through the social data of the network. And there's actually really good ways to help prevent gaming of that in terms of airdrop farming or reward hacking behaviors that tends to like weigh down social protocols. We basically like solved the spam problem algorithmically in a way that is also an incentivization metric for users to behave well on the network. And so that's the third form of proof of work that is integrated. And so yeah, we've been working pretty hard on that. There's about I want to say that the org itself is like 13 members large, like just a open source protocol org. And then there's also contributors that have come in along the way that have been really instrumental in helping us ensure that this next upgrade goes successfully.
That's fantastic. What are the hardware requirements?
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
The hardware requirements. The reason why I went into that was because hardware requirements for proof of work is generally expensive.
Yeah.
So by consequence, since it's proof of storage based, your biggest cost is not compute, but it's storage.
Storage.
Presently, the network is about I want to say about 750 gigabytes
Okay.
total. And so we actually recommend at least 2 terabytes of storage on whatever your node is. The network has shards itself, but it isn't something that's spread out yet. So in other words, if you're running a node, you're actually replicating all three shards that are present on the network currently. And so by consequence, yeah, like for now it's 2 terabytes. And then as we like break out the actual shards into separately running units, then the storage requirements go down.
What's the bandwidth for internet connection?
Bandwidth is actually really lightweight.
Okay.
I want to say it's, if you have like even a 40 megabit uplink, that should be plenty fine once you are actively participating on the network. Like once you've synchronized everything. The initial sync will be a real pain if you're on 40 megabits, but at least afterwards, it's pretty lightweight.
Excellent. Yeah, just in case there's any listeners out there that maybe don't know how to build any of the like you said snaps. Maybe they just want to support the network in other ways and they got a computer laying around that isn't doing anything. They want to throw it next to their node and do this node. There you go. And the documentation is all on GitHub. I'm sure it's pretty easy to find if they reach out to you at Cassie on Farcaster, or on X. Cassie Hart is at Cass _on_Mars. That's funny. One of my first friends in the space, his Reddit handle was Midnight on Mars. You know who Midnight on Mars is in the real world? I bet you will once I say it.
Yeah,
Just
I don't know.
that was his Reddit handle, Justin LaRue, CEO of Grid Plus.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah, good buddy of mine, a real jewel. Shout out to Grid Plus, not a sponsor, but I love their products. Anything else we want to talk about? We're getting close to the top of the hour here. I want to respect your time. Anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, just real quick.
Do it.
Quorum is one of the forms of the Farcaster clients that integrates Hypersnap. Obviously, it integrates broader things from the Equilibrium ecosystem that I've been building out over the years. But Quorum, it's just like any other Farcaster client in terms of how it interacts with Farcaster. But the chats, for example, are end-to-end encrypted. Like we brought that direct casts FIP into full force. So you have Discord style community chats and you have private direct messaging. There are other Hypersnap clients as well that I'll be quick to shout out. Stupid Social, uh, HeroCast, Castora, and Lectern, I know are all using Hypersnap. There's others, and I'm so sorry that I can't remember the names. These are just like rattling off the top of my head as we got 3 minutes left.
Oh, no, that's okay. We can go over if you have time. I still have
Yeah,
to. I
I have
still have to
time if
read
you.
Reddit,
Yeah.
so I don't know if you're going to be able to stick around for that. We do a top 10 list of the week, and I read through the entries. I know you said you're not on Reddit, and I know our community has faced some fracturing in the past, and we've always kind of wanted to keep our eyes open for other rooms to go into. So it sounds like you're building a lot of potentials here. Um,
Yeah, we'd be very happy to have you on Quorum. Right now, it is a test flight in Android beta. So like iOS test flight, Android is Google Play beta. Plus, we have a side loadable APK. But we are pursuing the App Store path as well. We had a lot of back and forth with Apple because the moment you make a social app, Apple has all these objections that come along the way. But yeah, it has support for voice and video calls. It has a
dang.
built-in wallet that supports practically all EVM chains. It supports obviously Equilibrium itself because I built that. Of course, I'm going to integrate it. BitTensor, Caspa, Bitcoin, of course. Like it's a very full-fledged wallet in terms of networks it supports. It also has integration with the mini apps that are on Farcaster. Like it's a very crazy app that there's only two people that are actively like working on it right now, myself and another member of Equilibrium. But it's yeah, we are delighted to have more people testing if you want on.
Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of Mavericks. Ben Broad's listening to this down in Discord. 12 Meatballs listening to this. Treebeards. There's so many Mavericks that are so well attuned to like trying out new things. We I wish I have a co-host, Logri the Bard. You and Logri the Bard in a room talking about all of these things would be enjoyable to listen to because he speaks your language so much. You just got a creative brain on you, and yeah, certainly next time I get out to Wichita, I'll ping you somehow, and yeah, we'll figure it out. I'll also do a secret barbecue in Kansas City when we're off here. I'll send you the invite to that because there's some people at the barbecue you would probably get along with. I just can't believe a Midwesterner is out there building shit like you are. So hats off to you. Good for you.
Yeah, I have a special love in my heart for Kansas. Like I'm not necessarily happy with the legislature, but um, nevertheless, like Kansas is just one of those surprising states. So many cool things have come from this state, and people don't even know it. And not to mention also like this state is responsible for two of the biggest health crisis of fast food joints. You got Pizza Hut and White Castle that came out of here, but nevertheless, like Kansas is just a cool state.
Fun fact: I had a rock band once upon a time, and Gene Bicknell, who owned something like 500 Pizza Huts, came and watched us because we were asking him for money to get out of the state. And I think he denied us because there's 7 people in our band. We all ate pizza, and he wanted us to stay in Kansas and stay fat. So.
Awesome.
Oh man, well, Cassie, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Now listen, you don't have to go anywhere if you want to stick around. I read Reddit, so you don't have to. We have a
Sure.
we have a weekly Doots show, and if there's anything like, even if you just like log off of the Zoom call or whatever, and if you feel like chiming in on Discord, just unmute your microphone. Some of this stuff, I never read this list. This is basically the best of the previous week on Reddit. We have about 1,300 people that have made this list, and it's something else. It's a thing that I actually created years ago, and basically we figured out who the top 10 people in the daily were that gave a comment, give or take, and then they get a point for it, and then we move them on, and the A word, one of our moderators, he hand picks the top comments from the last week that was on our Ethereum in the daily general discussion. So with that, we'll just jump right in. You guys,
I'll
here we
close
go.
out.
The weekly Doots' live stream is all about showcasing the best of the week from the daily general discussion on our Ethereum. It's a read-long reaction series. If you want to follow along, head to dailydoots.com, designed and produced by our very own Hani Abu. Big thanks to Tricky Troll for capturing and curating each of the day's Doots, and the A Word for curating this beloved weekly list. Subscribe to us on all your favorite platforms by visiting dailydoots.com. And as always, if you know anybody that wants to get in on a piece of this action for an interview, send them my way. Well, let's jump right in. Our morning roundup. How are you today? Says the word Ethereum. $10.9 gives us a price at $1,772. Frank the Tank with the 0.0277 on that god-awful ratio. And the weekly haiku comes to us by way of JS Tears. Cassie, by the way, JS Tears, he is also the founder of ETHCC over there and does Ethereum France stuff. You probably know him. Beyond the tendance, each node's network attendance, true independence. How does he do it, JS Tears? How do you do it? He writes a haiku like literally every day. All right, here we go. Our first dude of the week. Let me right click, get some of these tabs out of here. Close other tabs. Here we go. EVM Lion is a duder number 12 for this week. It's a bit crazy. They reflect on how the scaling situation has changed so much. EVM Lion writes, it's a bit crazy to think about how massively Ethereum has scaled the past years. I remember how a random sudden trend like crypto kitties single-handedly was able to make the whole chain completely unusable. Well, that means too expensive for normal user transaction. Now, the big actors like Robinhood yesterday can casually onboard millions of transactions in a single day, and we don't even notice it. I'm thinking L2s like this, in addition to scaling the layer 1, will justify bringing a lot of usage on-chain that was unthinkable yesterday. The block space supply has grown rapidly and way faster than demand lately, which we've all been painfully aware of. But I think we're really opening the door for a wide range of applications here, and that the gap will be filled. Cassie, this goes back to my Amazon comment. I feel like the Robinhood kind of flashpoint, Sony doing a chain, those little flashpoints are kind of like that original bubble in Amazon that popped, and it was down in that trough, 90% off of highs. People thought, how stupid is it to sell books online, right? And how wrong they were for all the other offerings that eventually came to be, including independent people selling their stuff on Amazon. It's really an interesting success story, for better or for worse. But like you were saying, Cassie, earlier, and I think people need to be reminded, and I got an education as well, is that once upon a time we had these things called shards, which to my understanding, based off of what Cassie was saying, is kind of like how you can keep all of that scaling activity on the layer 1. But it proved to be that it was economically more incentive for a few actors to figure out how to wrangle that EIP out of there, apparently, and get rid of it and opt for this layer 2 formula that we have now. History will determine if that was the right answer or not. User non-etherless 325, it's hard to read, recommends a good podcast on the Ethereum economic zone. This user is a Duder number 9 for this week. They got a good podcast here, the Ethereum economic zone on Epicenter. Interoperability, real-time proving, synchronous composability. For the first time, I've heard about a possible L2 Oracle network. Apparently, the business of Oracle is gas heavy. Need to post a lot on layer 1. If I understand correctly, the goal of such a layer 2 would be to minimize these costs while preserving the functionality thanks to the Ethereum economic zone. Let's see, I'll put this in the chat on Restream. There's the link to the YouTube channel if you want to check out that podcast. Awfully Hot Coffee Pot on YouTube says, Cassie, will Lukaku score? Lukaku. Is that a soccer team? I don't know. Crypto Statuette, got a hop up. Thanks for the great conversation. Yeah, thanks for chiming in. It's good to see you. And great to have you. I think you are maybe hanging out for a little bit on Discord too. It's nice. All right. Moving on down, user 12 Meatballs, one of our curators here on the channel, is a Duder number 57, shares a good summary of the ENS drama. And user How Chisel made a video of the ENS DAO situation. Again, I do this, I think, every week. How Chisel has an amazing, Ethereum podcast. And he covers other stuff as well. But right on the main page of our Ethereum, this gentleman, Tim Ho, I believe is his name, H-O, last name, has a fantastic channel. People should subscribe to him. It's pretty rare to find like somebody who is
Imagine your condo
a good
holds a
storyteller.
meeting every time a tree needs trimming or a trash pickup changes. Everyone living in the condo votes, or someone wants to put in a new swing set. A condo vote. A cracked sidewalk that needs fixing. A condo vote. It sounds democratic.
Okay, so go check that out. Ethereum's phone book is being taken over. Maybe, question mark. That's Tim Ho. He's got 18.4 thousand subscribers. Another comment on YouTube. Can Cassie talk about QNS, please? I think you meant ENS, please. The ENS tobacco, you can clarify. Go ahead, Cassie. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny. There's two different things at hand. Like we just saw the ENS drama going on, so I imagine that's like fresh on everybody's mind. And I think it's interesting to note like that the issue around governance with the DAO is like a real reflection of why like direct democracy-based approaches where votes are literally buyable can produce really unfavorable outcomes. And I guess that's also a very general statement about politics as well. Um, but QNS is actually essentially Equilibrium's answer to ENS for the Q ecosystem. We have it integrated in Quorum as a way for people to have unique identifiers as their usernames. What we do differently than ENS, obviously, instead of being on Ethereum, it's on Equilibrium, but QNS is essentially like ENS, where you can have it resolved to a wallet address, but you can actually also have it resolved to content on Q. Q is a very privacy-preserving network, and so we actually have the ability to host web content and route to it internally on the protocol, so people can kind of basically use the browser inside of Quorum as like a Tor browser type of thing, except
Wow.
instead of onion URLs, it's QNS names that route to content.
Fantastic. I had no idea. Today I learned. Thank you, Awfully Hot Coffee Pot, for the question. That's great. Thank you, Cassie. Okay. Let's see. Decent summary of the ENS situation. I never did get to this post. The 12 Meatballs post. Oh, it's from Kevin Owaki, a good friend of the show. Kevin Owaki is one of the founders of Gitcoin. He's also at Gitcoin again, I think, is how that works. Let's see. So he has a huge write-up here with a bunch of cited people as well and the whole history. Make sure you guys get a chance to check out Kevin Owaki's tweet on the ENS stuff. I put that on the chat. And then moving back to How Chiseled, a.k.a. Tim Ho on YouTube. Does decentralized governance in DAOs really work? This is an almost existential level question on the realities of one of crypto's most core toolings. And it's being put to the test by what's happening within the Ethereum name service DAO today. If you've heard buzz around the drama surrounding ENS lately, but couldn't be bothered to keep it up, Tim explains. And I already showed you a little bit of that. Astafari12 assesses Lighter and Hyperliquid as a user and investor. Astafari12 is an OG. They got 67 points as of this week. Lighter's L2 perp dex on Ethereum token is doing well, up 50% last month. It is continuing to climb after the Robinhood integration announcement. The open interest trend on the platform is flat though compared to Hyperliquid that is increasing. The token has deeper liquidity on Hyperliquid, than its own platform, but I hold both. If it gets special regulatory status, since it's based in the US, and if Hyperliquid is banned, it will rocket. I think we will see some regulation that benefits one or both in the next 1 to 2 years from how the CFTC and the SEC are talking about perp dexes. The bad thing is with both platforms I have found is that perps are abysmal buy and hold instruments for the long term. You'll be paying a lot in funding fees, often somewhere between 5 and 50% APY just in interest. NASDAQ 100 is at 5%. NVIDIA is at 15. SpaceX is now at 55. You want to be holding spot if long term, but those are much more difficult legally and also to implement, while bringing in less volume, so less revenue. And got a link here to the DeFi Llama if you want to check out the Lighter token stuff going on there. It's over my head, I'll be honest. There's like so many options out there. It's hard to keep up with everything. Hey, proof or it didn't happen. XYZ made it to the list. Speaking of the devil, starts a great discussion about the importance of retail adoption. This user is climbing up the charts. They're at a Deuter 18 for this particular week. I understand thinking success depends on institutions, but I think we're drastically underestimating the need for retail adoption. The internet became entrenched in society because it enabled simple, fun, useful apps for everyday people. What ETH organizations are championing this mission? I check out the mentions of the consumer on eth.sh versus mentions of institutions. And there's a screenshot here. Okay. Anyway, so it looks like, let me go to this. This says all of your EVM tools in one place. Have you seen this before, Cassie? ETH.sh provides a comprehensive suite of tools for Ethereum developers and users, from decoding call data to interacting with contracts, converting units, accessing frequently used constants, and more. Everything you need just to click away. Oh, wow. There's so many tools out there, huh? It's like a Swiss Army knife of stuff. And looks like the Swiss Knife XYZ team on GitHub is pretty active too, I think. Yeah. Got a few contributors getting after it. Nice. All right. Yeah, he's right. How do we, what is the killer retail app, you know? I look at some of this as like, at what point do we just say retail is here? They're just small. I don't know. Because I feel like there was a craze there with like crypto kitties going all the way back in the layer one. Who was that? That was clogging up the network, causing tremendous gas fees and demand. And I know we didn't have a lot of block space back then, but that was like, I was a Bob and an Alice going to Coinbase and buying my little ETH so I could go buy my crypto kitty or whatever, you know, in that retail. Is there like is there like a flashpoint of the number of people that's required to call something retail? I don't know. Is there a threshold? Is it based on the percentage of the population? Does it have to be everybody buying Nikes before we say that retail has arrived? Or is it just like, hey, is there just some portion of the internet that they like specific shoes by whatever, Yeezy or just some micro brand that's boutique or whatever? That's retail too. I never understood that. I can understand there's trends of when the fish are eating and when they're not. That makes sense. Is that what? But I don't know. I use Ethereum mostly for like helping out teams on Octant. I like doing that these days more than speculating on shitcoins. I don't know. It's cool. All right. User Tricky Troll noticed crypto rails being adopted in the back end and normies having no idea. Tricky Troll is a 181 for this week. So I was just watching a few days of old tech news video, and I heard that starting September 15th, Cloudflare will not allow web crawlers, which harvest content for AI training, to access websites unless they pay the websites and content creators for their data. This sounds familiar. Ooh, I bet the payments are via X402. And do you know what? It turns out that yes, indeed, they are X402. And X402 uses Base. Base. Obviously, not a single crypto hater in the comments noticed this, but this is how Ethereum ends up as the global settlement layer. Before you know it, everyone is using it. Also, some sad news from the same video. Reddit's position on old.reddit.com is no longer indefinite support. Oh, shit, that sucks. Ugh. I don't like that at all. Also, some sad news from the same video, right? Rather, they will maintain it while people use it and while it is able to remain secure. To me, this sounds like it's something they want to do in the medium term. I'm going to get on my soapbox real quick. That pisses me off because I use Reddit Enhancement Suite to keep track of our daily Doots scores. It's the only way I know how to do it is to use a moderator tool that some guy made that Reddit allows to be used in the browser to help like take notes on people, but most importantly, keep the Doots scores going. So I could tell you 100%, they ain't going to do shit for me on Reddit, on the new style of Reddit. Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do the Doots scores the way I've done it. That's terrible. So terrible. As what's his name? Who's a basketball player? Charles Barkley. It's terrible. Anyway, I hope that doesn't happen. Hope we can get that ship turned around. All right. Oh wow, a double dupe for Non-Etherless 325. Holy cow, this guy. This is the second weekly dude for him. Digs up a snippet of Twitter misinformation and user Haniabu, ooh, there's an OG, points out the reality of first mover advantage. To me, this is malicious because I can't believe this level of disinformation. 100,000 followers account on X. Here it is, quote, the Clarity Act. Bitcoin is not just an asset. It's the backbone of a new financial system in which contracts, payments, and ownership live on chain, displacing much of today's intermediary heavy architecture. That's not accurate at all. How is this even like possible that this can? I wonder if Grok is top comment, sir. You're describing Ethereum. This is crazy. In that context, the Clarity Act, this James E. Thorne, Dr. J Strategy, where's he from? Chief Marketing Strategist from Wellington Altus, a PhD in economics, astute observation, personal views, do your own research. Okay, James E. Thorne writes, in that context, the Clarity Act is an overtly bullish milestone by hard-coding digital assets into the core SEC CFTC market framework. It accelerates institutional adoption and clears the regulatory runway for Bitcoin. What? For Bitcoin to migrate from a speculative asset to a primary collateral and eventually de facto legal tender in a system that increasingly has to meet Bitcoin on its own terms rather than marginalize it. Oh my God, this guy.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, this is Ethereum, Joker. You're talking about Ethereum, not Bitcoin. This is freaking, what a brainwashed lunatic. Everybody in the comments is just like roasting him. They should. That's just like, it's clearly disingenuous. Clearly disingenuous. The only way you're going to make Bitcoin be the foundational asset of blah, blah, blah is if it gets tokenized on Ethereum first. That's all there is to it. I just don't even know how that can be conceived as anything other than propaganda. And then Hani Abu replies, it's hard to say. You'd be astonished at how many people actually think this is true. They think that everything happens on Ethereum, from smart contracts to DeFi, stablecoins to RWAs, is also happening on Bitcoin. It's not as in happening on both. They just attribute everything they hear to being built on Bitcoin. Many probably don't even think Ethereum, let me rephrase that. Many probably even think Ethereum is built on Bitcoin. That's the power of first mover advantage and the misinformation machine. Boy, you are absolutely correct, Hani Abu. Hani Abu is at our number 7 position on the rich list. I did not go through this on the beginning of the show. We'll do it now. Our top 10 duders for this week: ethical trade at 121, the A word at 124, crypto wild currency at 141, Hani Abu at 143, Jay has tears at 163, Tricky Troll at 181, Benito 2030 at 185, Superfizz is at 250, LogrisTheBard 262. Shout out to LogrisTheBard. He's moved. I won't disclose where, but I will say it is not anywhere near here. All right. And Harog is at 362 at the top of the leaderboard. We don't have a lot of guests on the upcoming podcast, so if you know anybody, you sure to shout out. Big thanks to Cassie from Hypersnap hanging out with us today, all the way from Wichita, Kansas. It's so good to have you. I did not know you're a Midwest gal, and I tell you what, they make some smart people around here, and you've been a real pleasure to hang on the show with. I'd love to have you back anytime.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, there you go, everybody. Thanks for subbing and smashing the bells around here and tuning in across all those different channels. Make sure you subscribe at dailydoots.com on behalf of the EV Mavericks DAO, the daily general discussion on our Ethereum. My name is JT. Cheers and big hugs from Kansas City.